Welcome back for part 2 of the 2004 Honda Pilot steering rack replacement. Also see the video's description for links to some of the products used in this video. Since I didn't see anything wrong with the rack bushings, we're going to retrace our steps and test the steering rack and suspension components. Alright, so on the driver's side, after doing all that work to get the rack out, I think we still have a rack issue. So what I've done is I put the steering rack back in, just temporarily bolted it in, and I put the outer tie rod back on, and I'm just going to wiggle this back and forth now. Alright, so we're on the passenger side now. You can hear no noise on this side. I've shown before the outer tie rod test where you pull up on the outer tie rod. I'll talk about that once I get the wheels off. But it would appear that our inner tie rod on the driver's side is bad. And for good measure, we're going to do the ball joint test. Basically grab it at 6 and 12. That's pretty solid. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to check here. I've done this check before when I was checking suspension components on this car. I've replaced several things on this car that needed to be replaced. So you just grab here, pull up, and you can see that's pretty solid. Alright, so we're on the passenger side. And nothing there either, it's very solid. So I'm going to take a look at replacing the inner tie rod. I have the steering rack, so I was thinking about replacing the whole thing because I don't know what condition that inner tie rod is in. But I guess I'll try and take it apart and see what I find. Alright, so we got the outer tie rod out of the steering knuckle. And what I'm going to do now is take this clamp off right here and slide it back this way. There we go. Okay. Ooh. Well, that's not good. I got the boot off and I got showered with a bunch of power steering fluid right in my eye. That did not feel good. It appears that we have a bad rack here. So we may be replacing the rack after all. Alright, so there is the old steering rack right there, and the new one. And I'm almost out of space in the garage, as you can see. I kind of pan you around, you kind of look around. Got a lot of MDX parts in here. And right over there, those are the cylinder heads for the MDX. Those are almost done. So I've got the valves for the exhaust side done. So that's a separate project. You can follow on the channel if you'd like. Alright, so I thought I'd look over at least what's in this box before I start tearing things out. There's a lot of cautions and importance everywhere. So that one says, power steering system should be flushed before installing replacement unit. This one says, please read enclosed instructions concerning part number and design consolidations. So I'm going to have to look at this. Got a couple cotter pins in here also, a couple O-rings in there. Don't void your warranty. Always flush your system and use OE recommended fluid. Okay. Port threads were in good condition upon remanufacturing. All fittings and adapter something or other are not to exceed 20 foot-pounds. Okay. So lots of cautions and warnings in here. I kind of like that because hopefully that means that this is a good quality remanufactured rack. I am going to take this out of here. I think what I'm going to do, for at least for right now, I'm going to transfer the tie rod ends, these, onto the new rack. At least get that process started, and then we'll look at all the other things we need to do also. Alright, I'm going to start on this end. And what I'm going to do first of all, just kind of clean this off a little bit. I think what I'm going to do is just kind of draw a line across here, because I need to spin this off. I want to see how many revolutions it takes to spin this all the way off. So you can see this joint, this one's kind of floppy, it's old. Alright, so I'm breaking this nut loose. I happen to lose one of my crescent wrenches, so I just have this one and this really small one. It had been a while since I last worked on a steering rack. I didn't remember that a 19mm wrench can be placed here to hold the outer tie rod steady while the nut is loosened with a large adjustable wrench. So all I did was put my foot on here, like this, stood on it, and then just pop this loose. You see it's loose right there. Alright, so all I'm going to do is count the number of spins it takes to get this off. See, our two marks are lined up right there. There's 1. That's 2. 10. 11. 16. 17. 18. Looks like about 18 and a half, roughly. Take the nut off of this here. Check this one compared to that one. They appear to be about the same. Gonna put the nut on over here. So it's 18 and a half. That's 1 and a half, I guess. 2 and a half. 3 and a half. 16. 17. And 18 and a half right there. We're going to have to get an alignment done anyway, so they'll probably adjust this. I may be off a little bit. Alright, so I flipped it around. We're going to work on the passenger side now. And it looks like somebody put some vice grips or something right in this area. That's lovely. So, just spin the knot off. Hopefully it'll come all the way off. Alright, so I finally managed to get this loose. What a pain. So I did have to put the wrench here. I tried it up here. That didn't work too well, so I moved it down here on the tie rod. Flip this over. Okay, there's our marks right there. There's 3. Okay, it seems like it's easing up a little bit. So 11, and 12, 15, 16, 17, 17 and a half roughly. Alright, so we're going to work on putting this nut back on and getting this tie rod on here. Alright, so I'm going to spin this one on. I have a mark right here and this mark here. I've got it. I'm going to call this a half so far. I've spun it on just a little bit here. So there's 1 and a half, 2 and a half, 3 and a half, 15 and a half, 16 and a half, and 17 and a half. I ended up tightening the nut off camera. This top cushion needs to be transferred over to the new rack also. Alright, so I need to transfer one more thing over to the new rack. I forgot about that. This outlet here needs to come off. That is a 17. So I'm going to use this other wrench to hold it. Let's see here. There we go. I was looking for some O-rings. The instructions mentioned O-rings. I don't see anywhere those O-rings would go except for maybe on the power steering pump or something. But I have no clue what they're talking about. There's nothing mentioned in the service manual about O-rings either. So I'm going to pull these caps out. We're going to put this outlet in. It goes up here. Alright, so we're going to tighten this down now to 21 foot-pounds. Alright guys. Before we install the steering rack, we need to flush the power steering lines. We're going to start with the return line, so I've hooked up some hose to my vacuum pump. Then we'll pour fresh fluid into the power steering reservoir and draw it through the line until the fluid is clear. Next, we'll work on the high pressure line. Alright, so I put the high pressure line back on. I'm going to see if I can draw some fluid up through that line and into the tank. Alright, so it appears to be coming out fairly clear now. So I think we're just about done. I'm going to go back and drain the other line too. Some of the fluid's getting into the other line also. Okay, so here's where you'll see a mixture of footage because I reinstalled the old rack when I thought just the inner tie rod was bad. So just bear with me here and pretend that we're installing the new rack. Probably gonna have to go on the other side and take a look and see what's getting jammed up over there. Yeah, it's the boot over here getting stuck. Turn this around. And I'll go back over there and pull it through gently. Alright, so since the rack is still free at this point, I'm going to put the cushion back in. And the split is facing up, if I remember correctly. Make sure that's centered in the bracket. It should be good, right there. Alright, so I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. Apologize for the light. It is very bright out today. So there's the bracket I'm going to put back in above the steering rack. And I'm just going to secure at least one bolt for now. I may have to align these two holes here. Looks like they're a little off. So I'm going to have to probably play with jacking up the transfer case. Jacking it in, lowering it. If I can remember where this goes. It goes here. Yeah, there's the hole right there. That goes like that. And then this goes up through here, like so. I'm going to set that there. There's a nut that goes on top. Just going to try to get this in place for now. Off camera, I installed the upper bracket bolt that's hard to see. No bolts are tight yet. I'll tighten the bolts after I get everything correctly aligned. So that bolt up here is threaded through. I felt it go in. This one is threaded through the nut up here. And now I've got these other two bolts. Looks like these are lined up pretty well. Thread those in, make sure they catch threads. All right, yep, that's going in. And this one down here. There we go. That one's got some threads. All right, so we're going to tighten these all down. They're all 43 foot-pounds. These two right here are 17 millimeters. This one 14, and the one back here is a 14. It's hard to get a wrench on top to tighten the nut, so I'm just going to tighten it down here. I'm going to hold the nut in place like so. There we go. Go. We'll do the bottom one first. Hold this tight again. Alright, so we're going to put this bracket in. Now the service manual does mention making sure that you put all the bolts in loosely first and then tighten them all down. So I'm doing this a little out of order. I should have waited until I got this bracket in before I tighten the other ones on the other side. We're going to proceed anyway though. We should be fine. If we're not, we'll just loosen them and do it again. So again, there's an arrow on here pointing to the front. Start that down. Okay, so it looks like we're looking good here. Everything's lining up correctly. Okay, and torque spec on this side is 29 foot-pounds. That's 14 millimeters. There we go, on that side. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to put this line in first. I would check these threads, make sure they're clean. These look pretty good. Slide this back in, make sure this is going in straight, so I would start this by hand. Make sure it's going in several threads and then grab a tool and tighten it down. I'm probably going to have to do this off camera since I'm in the way of the camera. And then I'll come back and hopefully talk about what I just did. Alright, so thankfully I got this to thread in. I pulled back on this line a little bit and then just started threading it in. And it caught a bunch of threads, so I'm good with that. Now I'm just going to tighten it down. Okay, yeah, it's turning good. Okay. All right, so the torque spec on that is 27 foot-pounds, I think I read. So, let me grab a shorter extension to see if I can tighten that. I'm going to be very careful because that one will probably strip a lot easier than a regular bolt. Okay, so there is a little power steering fluid on this outlet. Let's see if I can slide it on here. There we go. And then I'll grab a wrench and tighten this down. Make sure I slide this down far enough first. That's good right there. Hold this up with one hand and tighten it with the other hand. Yep, tighten all the way down, just about. So we're going to call that good. Alright, so there are two 10mm line bolts I need to put back in. So I'll do that. One is right here. Alright, so I got that started. Alright, so I think you get the gist. I'm just going to tighten these down and we'll continue. And if you care about specs on those, it's 7.2 foot-pounds. Alright, so I'm going to jack up the subframe now by the transfer case. So I'm going to put this bracket back on the driver's side. I put a D on it so I didn't cross these two brackets up. The one for the driver's side and the one for the passenger side. Not sure how you could do that, but anything's possible, I guess. Let's start that. There we go. Okay. All right, so we are going to put this bracket in, and this here, that's dumb. So I would support this cat. I wouldn't just let it hang like that. There we go. Okay. Ruh-roh. Seems to be going in just fine. I think I'm out of air. I forgot to turn the compressor back on. So instead of you watching me do this, I'm just going to tighten those all the way down, then we'll torque them. 76, 86. 17 millimeters. All right, 86. And 76. All right, so we're on to the front brackets. So these are 17s. I've already got these started. So before I tighten these down to spec, I'm going to do the other side, get those cinched down, and then we'll tighten both sides. So 54.76. Okay, 54.76. All right, so I'm going to put the propeller shaft protector back up. Make sure I get this oriented correctly. That's right. It's a 12 millimeter, by the way.